Welcome everyone to Just Onside. I'm your host Ahmed Badio Baghdadi, and I'm joined by the man who is still grieving over last night's defeat to Manchester City, Uwais Ahmed. And unfortunately, we're not joined by Ayub Patel today. I did see him. I did hear rumors that he was outside Ellen Road, uh, waiting for the club to get back, but it's their day off, so I'm not sure how much success he's having. How you
No,
doing? How you doing, Lewis? You all good, mate?
yeah, not too bad. It wasn't just a defeat, was it? It was a bit of a mauling yesterday, but no, I'm doing good. All things considered, ready to discuss the big game from yesterday. Yeah, Ayub's not with us today. Hopefully, he can share his thoughts on the Leeds debacle. When they got a point, so not a bad shout. But yeah, he should be back with us for the next episode. But looking forward to it. Good.
He should. He should. I think this is a good. I think it's good that he's not here today. I think he needs a time off. He needs to recuperate. I think his club have done a number on him, and the poor guy can't cope. But I'm sure he'll be back in good spirits for our next one.
Yeah,
But
maybe he's forgotten about that Bamford miss by then. Hopefully, so yeah.
ooh, if he has, I will remind him.
Good stuff.
But yeah, let's get straight into it. Man City, Arsenal. I mean, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. It was they had lost that game before they even stepped foot on that pitch, in my opinion. I think they were gone for anyone that lives under a rock and missed it. It was 4-1 Man City. And you'd never know it was the two top dogs that were fighting for the title that played in last night's game because it was men versus boys for the most part. And yeah, it was for me, it was predictable. I felt like this was coming. I know on the last pod, I predicted 3-1 victory and a very dominant 3-1 victory. And Erling Haaland must have heard the podcast and decided, I'm going to make sure this sucker is right. So it ended 4-1. But it was sad to see from Arsenal. I think the last few games have genuinely broken. You saw their reaction after the game at home to Southampton. The players looked dejected. They looked like they'd actually just lost the league there and then. The body language, everyone was down. And coming into this game, they just didn't look like they were up for it. And I know this is just us viewing through a TV and judging body language and stuff, but your eyes in those situations, they won't let you down. And you could tell they didn't feel like they were there. They felt like they were inferior to City, and City just had a field day, to be honest. I'm going to kick it to you first, Lewis. And I know I've said first after I've just given some thoughts.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, what did you think of the performance? And was it expected? Did you expect more from Arsenal? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's the great thing about disappointment, isn't it? You can only feel disappointment if you have a certain level of expectations. And I did mention on the last episode that I did feel like it was going to be a similar game to the one at Etihad when City beat Liverpool, and actually was the same scoreline. So maybe I deserve a bit of a pat on the back. But no, I mean, look, it would be the understatement of the year to suggest that Man City obviously comfortably deserved to win that game. I thought a difference of 3 goals was the bare minimum that Man City deserved in that game. A classy, I mean, what you saw from Manchester City was a classy performance, a confident team, completely in sync with one another in terms of positioning on the ball, off the ball. They've got a number of ways to play, which you saw yesterday. They slightly adjusted their tactics to play De Bruyne close up to Haaland and going a little bit more direct to beat the initial press from Arsenal. But Manchester City right now are an absolute juggernaut. I would say they are the best team in Europe right now in terms of the run they're on, consistency wise. I don't think there's a team in any of the major domestic leagues that's on the run that they're in, fighting for obviously three major trophies. For themselves, which they look, let's be honest, right at this juncture, they look well placed to achieve. So only time will tell. I think, look, in terms of the game itself, I think there were a couple of things. I think what I would say is, I think Arsenal have Arsenal have a style of football that they've developed this season, which puts them in a good position, I would say, to compete in 36 games. I think the way they play their football when everyone's healthy, in my opinion, anyway, methodically, the way they play through the midfield, through the thirds, into the wingers' feet, they keep decent discipline, and I think they've got enough in those 36 games. But when they come up against Manchester City, it's a puzzle that not many have been able to consistently solve. And I think therein, if you think about the way Arsenal play, I don't think it's conducive to beating City in a game. And what I mean by that is, if I think back to the teams that have unsettled Manchester City, and I'm thinking mainly Liverpool during that 3-4 years, even Spurs, and even Manchester United at certain moments, it's always been what I would say is Manchester City like to beat teams. They say death by 1,000 passes, famously coined from the death by 1,000 paper cuts. I think you have to beat them with this kind of blunt force trauma. And what I mean by that is if you think back to last year when Spurs beat them with that, do you remember the first goal when Kane comes off his defender, ping straight into Son? Son's on Son's on the vertical run, squares it for Kulusevski. What I mean is you have to upset their rhythm. You have to change their shape. They believe strongly whether it's on the ball or off the ball to be completely in control of their entire team shape. They don't want to get pulled left, right, running backwards, facing their own goal. You have to create those situations. And one of the things that Arsenal perhaps are not yet adept, I would say, is playing off the ball, making vertical runs in behind. Ask yourself how many times. I mean, I remember Martinelli with that famous goal when Odegaard played him against Brighton, if you remember, just kind of on that half turn. But very rarely is Saka kind of running in behind through one-on-one. The only time I can remember it this season was when he was streaking clear at Anfield, if you remember, at the end when Martinelli couldn't make the pass. But what I mean is they play generally methodically to feet. And it's very static. And when you consider that Man City, and they did this at the Emirates, they close off all the passing lanes. And also were just too slow and timid and passing to feet, you're not going to beat Manchester City playing in front of them, passing to feet. You have to beat them with that blunt force trauma. It's got to be one pass, two pass on the half turn, bang, straight in behind. And those are the teams and those are the players that they've, I would argue, consistently struggled against. I say struggled against, so I would at least say conceded chances against. And that's, I believe, how you have to try and trouble them. The way Arsenal tried to do it yesterday, some would argue it's Man City light, and you're not going to beat them playing that type of football.
No chance.
So I think that's where they perhaps have got some room for improvement, definitely got room for improvement. And I think that's something Arteta will definitely be looking at. You've got to win your duels. You think about that first goal. Yes, Haaland's pinned Holding, but it's early on. You'd say either give a foul away or make sure you've got to let him know he's there, to let him take it, roll him onto his left foot, and then obviously De Bruyne, magical. If there's one player you don't want 20 yards away from goal with a clear strike on goal.
But to your point, like you're not going to beat City, playing the way Arsenal did, and you can't beat them at their own game. That's for sure. Anytime United have had joy against them, it's like you say, upsetting their rhythm, and we move quick. One direct ball over the top, a runner in, and the level of players United, Arsenal, these clubs have, you can punish them. So do you not think Arteta should have set them up differently? I know I get it. There's that pride aspect to it where you want to stick by your guns and play the way you've been playing. It's got them to the race, don't get me wrong, but like, you know what City are, you know what you're going to expect from them. Do you not think you should have approached it differently? Especially after dropping the points that they had in the previous games. Do you not think they should have just attacked it in a different manner?
I think it's a fair point, Badge. I really do. I know what you mean exactly. Managers have a certain pride and arrogance, and I like that in some ways because it's the very thing that gets them consistent points in all across the games. Yeah, this clear identity and philosophy. We don't change. We play a certain way. But
sorry, I said to the race. I meant to the dance.
But you're right, and I think perhaps given what had happened in recent games, I see your point. And one of the benefits of playing that way is that you obviously get plenty of men behind the ball. You'd like to think you're not going to concede as many chances, so that's going to build a certain natural confidence that you're not getting hammered like the Arsenal yesterday felt like they were going to concede every time Manchester City entered the box. So I think it builds a certain confidence into your psyche after a couple of difficult games. But what it also does, to my original point, it brings their kind of backline and a backline onto the halfway line because they're having to commit extra men to develop attacks, and then you've got the space in behind. Again, whether Arsenal were willing to commit to that, like I said, vertical running off the ball, it's got to be done that way. If you again going back to that goal, I still remember it. It's just you can tell it's something Spurs had worked on, which is Kane coming off. And it's like Son's on the move before Kane's even got the ball, and it's just perfectly in sync. And that's the only way I think consistently you can attack and trouble the City back line. I think similar to one of the goals United scored at Old Trafford this season, you mentioned it. If I remember correctly, I think there was like a ball played into the channel. I think for Garnacho, and then he squares it for Rashford. I think it was.
No,
But you've got to get them turned. You've got to get them kind of in spaces in behind, disrupt that shape and rhythm somewhere. And Arsenal trying to play to feed, trying to find passing lanes. This team is simply not going to give you those
no,
passing
no
lanes,
chance.
and that's where the problem was. And I saw something similar develop at Emirates. Although at the Emirates, Arsenal were full of confidence and they still couldn't find a way to win that game. I think in the end, my overriding feeling, honestly, with the game was it was expected, but there wasn't as much disappointment because I did feel like you said, that opportunity had perhaps passed them by in the earlier games. And look, there's a lot of chatter today as well in terms of friends saying, what do you think? Where do you think Arsenal went wrong? And my only view is I think at times you simply just have to give credit to the opposition and understand whether it's I can only use these examples, but whether it's a Floyd Mayweather in a boxing ring or whether it's like a Rafael Nadal at the French Open or playing on clay, you come up against these opponents where it's like the standards are so high that you only have either two choices. One is this idea that, well, Arsenal, look, you've come up short, and you kind of give up, and it's like, okay, it was a good season, and let's see what next season brings. Or you try and improve certain aspects of your game and come again. And that's how some of the best rivalries are born as well. This idea of, and that's why we love sports, right? It's this kind of sporting, this development, this rivalry where one team wins and then the other team, kind of fights back and improves and goes at it. And that's why we all love the game. But I think generally the overriding emotion was one where you have to take your lumps. You have to understand where you came up short. And I think the way Arteta spoke and the way his general managerial demeanor is, I think he will look to address one or two things in the summer. And I do feel like they will come again. Whether they'll be in the same position, that they have to prove that, right? Just like every other team. But I do feel like they are perhaps right now the best of the rest. And I think with some development and to come again and to keep their heads up and to go again, that'll be the sign to see whether or not Arsenal can be in this position to challenge what is an unbelievable team again.
Yeah, but like, I mean, we're talking as if it was City leading the whole time and Arsenal were just like chasing them. Arsenal were the ones that lead in the pack. I don't recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, any team that's led for this long and then not gone on to win it.
No, I think that is the case. And one of our viewers, Zaki, I think, posted a comment on one of our previous episodes suggesting the same, that I don't think this has happened before where teams led for so long, especially at the turn of the year. I think they had 50 points at the halfway mark or whatever it
And but
was.
that and exactly, and then we're talking about them now after the game at the Etihad, like they're the best of the rest already, and not that they're their direct rival. I thought it was honestly, I felt sad. Like I love laughing at Arsenal's expense more more than anyone. Don't get me wrong, but for them to lead the entire season, like and lead the way they've done, like don't let's not get it twisted. They've been amazing this season. No one would have seen it coming, and they've played some great football, beaten teams consistently. Like the level that they were showing, they actually got people believing. Like not just forget the fans. The fans, some Arsenal fans are deluded anyway. But as any fans will be, if you see a team play like that. But like new fans of other clubs, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, they're all buying into the fact that they actually can go and do it. And then this last couple of weeks to like fall short in the manner in which they've fallen short, it's sad. It's honestly sad because yesterday, if I was to show someone that doesn't watch football that game and be like, all right, this is first versus second. No one would believe you because it just it looked like it looked like Arsenal was some struggling side, and then you had Man City who are absolutely flying. And it's just a regular weekend, like 3 p.m. win for them or something. I think they've fallen so hard. I mean, I know it's part of the experience you got to learn, but at the same time, I expect a bit more. I expect a bit more from the players to show some character to get through these tough patches. They just folded. Like I knew there'd be some hurdles, but I didn't know they'd fold to this extent. Like, yeah, I don't even feel like taking the mic, honestly. I actually don't even feel like taking the mic. And like I said in the last one, going into the game, I'd kind of lost my interest in the game because after what I'd seen against Liverpool, West Ham, and then Southampton, the writing was on the wall to such an extent where I'm like, if I watch this game, I'm just watching City win in comfortable fashion. And that is honestly what happened. And I was just, how can you lead the Premier League for that long and go out with such a whimper? Like,
But that's the great. That's what I mean. That's the great thing about sports, which is that you can look so um you can look so amazing, so comfortable, so confident, like Arsenal were, and then you have this difficult patch, a difficult moment at Anfield, and much of the discussion afterwards was, "Hey, it can still be a point gained." And look, things can happen at Anfield, and I understand that, and they should have won the game. I get that, but they could have also lost the game at the end for sure, the way Liverpool came on strong. But it's then that then leads into this kind of slightly defensive mindset once they've started like a house on fire against West Ham. But then you made the point, did they get complacent? Did they think it was in the bag? Whatever it was, I remember talking about Jesus dropping deep all the time and as if playing too safe, and then suddenly bad things happen off the back of that when you veer away from your identity. And then it's like Southampton, they go into it quite nervous, thinking, let's just get a win, and they concede in the first minute. Each event, in a sense, was a continuation from the troubles of the game before. And that's the thing. And then you go up against a team that's now won 11, 12, 13 games on the bounce, hit their stride. And I hear your point, Badge, about them leading all the way. And I don't get away from that. They have led all the way. They still lead the league today, at least on points, having played 2 games extra. But I think they have to, I don't want to look too far into the future, but this is what I mean. They've come up short. It's clear, I think, to most observers, if not all observers, that Manchester City will win this league and probably win it by a good few number of points. I think Arsenal will still drop some points in the remaining games.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how close they'll be to United or whoever is third in the end.
Well, Arsenal could finish third. I think we'll come on to that shortly. But no, look, I just what I'm simply suggesting is and just a couple of examples. I think back to arguably the greatest sports rivalry ever, one of the greatest sports rivalries ever, I should say, Federer against Nadal. Right? You think about some of the kind of 2007 Wimbledon final. Federer beats Rafael Nadal in 5 sets, one of the greatest matches ever. Next year, Wimbledon final, Rafael Nadal beats Federer in a 5 set classic. Again, finished in darkness, one of the greatest matches ever, most tennis observers say. You think about Federer in the French Open, he lost 2007, 2008, 2009, all in the final to Rafael Nadal. He then, sorry, it's 2006, 2007, 2008. He comes in 2009, he wins the French Open after beating Sutherland in the final. I say all that just to say you either persevere or you give up. And I think Arsenal have to be professional in the rest of the season, finish as high as they can, ideally finishing second. They've got some tough games. And next season, they simply just have to go again. And I think, again, this is what I love about sports. It's like they also have to prove to me as an Arsenal fan. And there was a lot of talk, you're right, and I don't read the news too much, whether it's a Piers Morgan or whatever, certain entitled Arsenal fans. And you're going to get that with any fan base. I get it. If you're reading certain platforms, that's the kind of discussion that you get. But the true, I would say, assessment of Arsenal is they should have handled the last few games better. I think I would 100%. I wouldn't shy away from that. But I think looking forward, if they do all the right things, they can come again, and that's the key. Yeah, they have to
But
prove.
I think it's true what you're saying, but I think that is so much easier said than done.
Mhm.
And I know you're saying entitled fans, but like I think as an Arsenal fan, I know before the start of the season you'd have bit off anyone's hand to come second place and actually be challenging. But given how the season's played out and how you've played, I can see why people are like angry at this because I would be very annoyed. Like I think what I was my initial comments on Arsenal and what I thought of the game. I was just thinking about it like a couple of minutes ago, and I was like, that's quite actually quite nice, being quite nice to him. Because honestly, if it was my team, I'd straight up say it was pathetic. Because how can you just fold like that? I honestly I don't see it. I think it was honestly pathetic without sounding too harsh. It's the truth because that is not a team that's been leading the Premier League all season. I know form, this, that, the other, but it just isn't. And if you want to, your aspirations are to win the title, and these players probably want it more than anything, then to go out and perform like that. And I'm not surprised some fans are fuming. I don't think they should go overboard, don't get me wrong, because no one bloody thought Arsenal would even be in this position. But I mean, it's if you look at it as a whole, it's great. Great season. You got nothing to complain about, yada yada yada. But then if you look at it just from the title race perspective, I think they've gone out with a whimper. They didn't show any fight. I have no faith, and I'm being honest with you. I know you probably disagree with me. I have no faith to even come back from this next season. What is to suggest the way they have folded in the last three games? They come up against adversity and they've just gone. For Spotify viewers, I did suggest a downward spiral.
Downhill, yes, again.
Yeah. But yeah, there's nothing to suggest they even come back from this. How do they mentally recover? Who are they going to sign that's going to take them to that next level or give them that belief?
But there's a couple of things here, right? I'll take those points in order if that's okay. Firstly, it would be easier to sit here and say we got beaten. Let's look at the two main protagonists yesterday in the Manchester City team. You've got Kevin De Bruyne, 102 Premier League assists, got him in record time. By the time he finishes in the Premier League, he will finish second. I don't think he can catch Ryan Giggs. He just played too long at 162 Premier League assists. I don't think De Bruyne can get there. At least I don't believe so. But he's going to finish second. He'll unseat Cesc Fabregas. You've then got Haaland scoring a goal every 70 minutes in the Premier League this season, 33. It would be easy for me to say we've just come up against a better team. And I have admitted to that. That's fine. But I don't throw in the towel to say, well, Manchester City spend all this money. They've got like two quality players in every position. Oh, look, woe is me. How are we ever going to compete? No, that's not where I'm coming from. Absolutely not. What I'm saying is sometimes we limit ourselves in this idea, or at least fans do, because they obviously always want to win the discussions at work or at home with friends and family or at the barbershop or wherever it may be. This idea that, oh, we should have won and we could have done more of this. You have to recognize an unbelievable outfit when you see one. Recognize that that is the standard that we have to somehow try and match, right? And not many have matched it. Liverpool have managed it for a number of seasons, and that's why I'm sure we'll get onto it. But that's why I gave Liverpool much more credit than perhaps some fans who suggest, well, they've only won one Premier League title, which I know is a factual observation, Badge. But moving on, the point is, it would be easy for me to point to all that and say, oh, look, well, nobody expected Arsenal to be here. And look, we would have just taken fourth. I don't even point to that. You'll never, ever hear me say that. The standards are the standards. Arsenal have to compete with Arsenal. They have to keep improving to a point where they're consistently able to challenge. And hopefully at some point, if they can manage that, if they can get their playing style so ingrained and get better at certain situations, that should naturally mean that they're able to compete against an unbelievable outfit like Man City. I don't want to see Man City as the target to reach, because of course they are. They are the barometer of everything that is in the Premier League right now. I think they're on course to win, 5-6 or whatever it is. But I just simply believe in focusing on yourselves and to reach a certain standard to keep growing to a point where you're like, no, this Arsenal team can compete. And they have to prove that to us. You're saying about can they mentally recover? The proof's in the pudding. We'll see. I can't promise it. But what I would say is that although they've got question marks to answer, all the other clubs have major question marks to answer as well. Another defeat for Chelsea yesterday, not scoring a goal at home or losing at home to Brentford. I'm just saying there are teams in and around them that also have question marks to answer. That's all I'm saying. But if Arsenal focus on themselves, and yes, they have to learn from these last few games, and you would hope that if they find themselves in a well, you would hope they find themselves in a similar position in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. They'll have done something well if they are in that position, and you'd hope it'd have a different outcome.
Yeah, I hate the way they're being spoken about. I just can't stand it. It's like they've led the Premier League since the off this season, and they're being talked about just because they got absolute sunned by by Man City. It was like a father dad's playing against kids is ridiculous.
We understand the slang term, Badge. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you. You know what? I was just making sure. I was just making sure. I was like, I do this podcast with elderly gentlemen.
Good
No,
stuff.
but seriously, man, they're getting talked about like oh yeah, good effort, boys, all that kind of nonsense, and I'm just like,
Yeah, agreed.
come on, man, it's top versus second, and you're top. You're not second. You're the top team, and I know, and I was first to say like they were defeated before they even got on the pitch because of their previous results, but show some kind of fight, man. Like they might as well have not turned up. For
What
me.
what I would say is, I think normally when you find yourselves in this position, I mean, there was also a lot of talk about what Arteta could and should have done. I think this was a case of you came up against a better team and you have to applaud that and you have to try and learn and grow and get better and hopefully come again. That's the idea. In football, you don't give up. You keep going. I'm not
No, I
talking
wouldn't
about
say a better team. You come up against a team that's in better form than you, but you're still above them in the league, and that's something. And that's something that they should have took into that game. I went into it like like they just weren't on the same level.
no,
It's
but
crazy.
that's the great thing, isn't it? When you saw some of those some of the best games in recent memory have been those Liverpool Man City games, right? Whether it's Champions League, whether it's league games, home away deciders, like in kind of those April games. And it always felt as though once Liverpool, once obviously they reached they won the Champions League, but they felt like they belonged, right? You watch those games and you didn't quite know who was going to win the game, home or away, right? And that's the level that you need to somehow get to. And again, that's why I give Liverpool massive credit. It's like there are times when you watch City and you feel like they are the superior team, but there were times when, in all the games, at least I felt that way, yeah, in the majority of those games where you felt, who's actually going to win this game? Liverpool have some world-class footballers that can hurt Manchester City, and they did hurt Manchester City, and vice versa. And I just think Arsenal have to try and develop to the point where their forward line and their midfielders and their team is also seen the same way. They've come up short this season, right? And for that, they have to.
No, but whenever Liverpool have played them in the past in these kind of scenarios, Liverpool don't go into that game thinking they're second best. They don't give they genuinely don't give a top like I'm trying to find a word that's not a swear. They don't give one that it's Man City. They go into it and be like, we can beat you. That's one of the things I can say I respect about Liverpool, like over the last few years. They just approach the game as if we're here to win and that's that. And they have that attitude. They've not really won anything themselves over they won a little bit, but not too much. But they approach games as if they're up for it and they want to win.
No, but they got themselves to that point, is what I'm saying. And what gave them confidence is that
Arsenal have led the entire season. If that can't get you in the right headspace, where the hell are you going to be?
No, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, it always felt as though Arsenal were. I want to say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm just giving in, but it felt as though Arsenal are doing something a little out of the ordinary because, like you said, nobody expected it. So it always felt like, hang on, when's this kind of Cinderella story going to end to some extent? They always had to keep convincing people that they could do it, and in the end, they've come up short. It felt like when Liverpool arrived, I say arrived, but it was a case of they had a world-class goalkeeper, they had a world-class centre-back, they had arguably, at least at the same time, two of the top 3 or 4 fullbacks in European football. You could make that argument. You had Henderson at peak athletic form. You had a front three with an amazing an amazing number 9, Salah on the right wing, man. You get the point. And what I'm saying is, world-class players playing at the top of their form gives you that confidence that you belong on the same pitch, because you look across the pitch and say, well, our players are just as good as theirs. I don't think Arsenal can say that right now. They may never be able to say that. But to your point, they need to get to a point where when they come up against a City, I think they're okay for the most part in those 36 games. I think you would agree with that to a large extent. it's the two head-to-head games, and nobody's been able to solve the Manchester City puzzle consistently. I could argue maybe Spurs have had some joy, Liverpool have had some joy, and even United on the off chance have had some joy. But nobody consistently solves this puzzle. Arsenal have to get to a point where they can go toe to toe with Manchester City, regardless of the differences in wealth and spending power and all the rest of it. I don't point to that. I believe in Arsenal having the right manager at the helm, and I think he'll make the requisite moves as well, yeah, to grow and to keep getting better. If you look at some of the other teams right now, let me ask you the question. Right now, you would say Liverpool need to show that they can go out and get two or three quality midfielders. Chelsea, I cannot make an assessment on right now. They're about to appoint Pochettino, but you can't.
They're a mess.
Yeah.
Forget them.
Now, you would say Newcastle, can they buy one or two players to get in amongst that title challenge? You still feel like they're a little short. So you'd say it's United and Arsenal between who can take that jump, right? To challenge City consistently. And we'll see, right? I don't know now. If in the summer Manchester United buy Harry Kane and Declan Rice, then I would say, yeah, they're ahead of Arsenal. There's no two ways about it. But let's just see how it plays out. But you get the point. I think they are well equipped out of all the
Like,
other
don't get me. I get your points, and you're right. You're right in what you're saying. It's just, listen. Even before this game, even before we got to this game, like 5 games prior, everyone was looking at this game as a title decider, and most people did have Arsenal down City down to beat them. But it's the manner. It was the manner more than anything.
But
The
do you
manner
think?
in which they've gone down. I think that was what was sad.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? Do you think if they had drawn to Liverpool and if they had beaten West Ham and beaten Southampton and gone into that game,
Oof, different game.
they would have gone into that game nine points ahead, right? Because they were 5 points ahead going into yesterday, I think. So they would have gone in 9 points clear, having played 2 games extra. And let's say if they had Saliba, and I know that's a lot of ifs, right? But do you think that because he does play a part, right? Let's not. I thought Arteta was quite pointed in his comments yesterday about one long ball, we lost our duel, and then we lost the goal. I'm not saying he was finger pointing at Holding, but he's right. You've got to somehow win your duels, yeah, against if you want to achieve big things. Do you think the game would have still panned out differently, or do you think actually no, they probably would have gone into it with a little bit more confidence and they'd have had their centre back pairing and they probably would have made a better job of it? They may well have still lost. I think they still would have lost. But what's your thoughts?
I don't know if they still would have lost. I think it was anybody's game if they went in full strength and in form and had they not dropped those points in the games previous. I do think it'd be a different game. The players would be up for it. I think that's the kind of things that these players need. I don't particularly feel like just because they're leading, I think they've proven that they didn't still have that self-belief that they were the best just because they dipped a bit. But
the argument would be, did they ever feel like they were the best? There was a part of me that felt genuine, and you may laugh at this.
Oh, I'd hope so.
No, you'd hope so, but there was a part of me that felt, even when they were in that amazing run of form where they won 7 on the bounce or whatever it was, and I remember thinking, how would I feel if Arsenal continued this form, lost at Etihad, and somehow still won the league? And I know what your answer would be. You'd be like, and what's the question? And there was a part of me that felt like, if you want to win big things, and I think I shared this with you offline, you have to kind of go into the backyard of the big one. You know, you kind of to slay the dragon to some extent, and to lose at the Emirates and Etihad. And let's be honest, they've been losing to Man City for a long time now, home and away, and all domestic cups and what have you. There was a part of me that it didn't sit well with me, because the question is, are you the best? Yes, over 38 games you are for sure. If you have more points than the other team, you win the league, right? But I feel like at some point you're going to have to be able to deal with this team. Of course you do. And I would hope that over the next year, 2 years, they can grow to a point where, to your point about what Liverpool managed, they belong on that pitch and they can go toe-to-toe with this unbelievable team.
I don't think they can. Just to put a ball on this, I don't think they can. I think it's too brittle, too soft. These are not reactionary thoughts. These have been my thoughts about these Arsenal players for a while, even though they have surprises this season. Many people mocked Gary Neville, and it turns out he could be right in his estimation. United won't finish above him, but even still. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see. Let's see with Arsenal.
Well, I think if I can perhaps ask you
We're
to.
we're running longer ways. I'm Mr. Time Management. We need to
Okay,
move.
final question. Would you agree that obviously under this manager they've taken big strides? So to your point about them being brittle, you would give them the benefit of the doubt to see if he can continue to take those big steps next season and the season after. He's earned that right, surely.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No
so
question.
let's.
Who are
So
they
what
gonna
I'm saying
get?
is, no, no,
He's doing a
but
good job.
no. I don't mean in terms of no. Listen, I want
No, no, no.
alternative.
Yeah. I get it. I get
I
it.
just mean you would accept that there is a possibility, given the progress they've made, that they could take another step forward
I think
next
for
season.
them though, because they've made such giant progress in little time, I don't think they've had time to think about it, and they've moved and they've
Mhm.
just gone game to game. Yeah, we're winning. And then when it came to the crunch and they started thinking about, you know,
And that's the
we're,
hurdle.
we're
And that's the hurdle they have to manage as a big team.
yeah,
You're going to be
and
playing big
that is
games.
where I have question marks about them. But we'll see. We'll see. Um,
Good.
Moving just a little down the table, we have the top four race, and it is heating up, and I don't like it. I don't like that it's heating up, but it is heating up, and we've got Villa in unbelievable form. Like, where have they come from? It's actually incredible what Unai Emery is doing there. Again, churning out a win, 1-0 this time. And they are sitting in fifth. Liverpool, bit of a resurgence lately for them as well. Beating wait, who did they beat?
West Ham.
West Ham. Sorry. Yeah, beating West Ham 2-1 last night. Again, moving into sixth. We've got a big game tonight in Spurs and United. Anybody's game. If Spurs win that game, then oof, it really does throw a spanner in the works, and that top four race heats up immensely. I believe we have Newcastle away to Everton as well. Everton fighting for their lives, but if Newcastle are playing anywhere near how good they've been playing lately, that seems like a foregone conclusion as well. But at this point, you just don't know. So yeah, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking about? Can Villa actually break this top four, given the form they're in, or are Newcastle and United still in the driving seats?
Yeah, I don't, to answer your question directly, I don't think so. Looking at the points total and looking at the games played, Aston Villa, and also the games that they have remaining, I don't think they can. I have Manchester United finishing third with 77 points, and
Sorry, excuse me.
I have Newcastle finishing fourth on about 74 points. I think even with Liverpool's resurgence, I just did a quick kind of fixed schedule. I only see them finishing on about 71 points. Let's see. But I think United will finish third. I think Newcastle will finish fourth. If Manchester United win all their games in hand, they're only 7 points behind Arsenal. And if in the event, and Arsenal have got to play some tough games, right? Brighton, I know United, I think also have to play Brighton, but Brighton, Chelsea, you might laugh at that, but I think Chelsea will enjoy a little bit of space against an out of form, obviously Arsenal. So there is this kind of small percentage chance, I think, that United could also finish second, at least in my opinion, anyway.
Saying that we've got Villa, Brighton,
No, for
and
sure.
today
And today,
Spurs.
so yeah, a lot depends on today. But I think, yeah, like I said, I think Villa have just run out of games, in my opinion, especially with the fixtures to come. But of course, they're in great form. They picked up another narrow win against Fulham, I believe.
Mhm.
Liverpool, I think, just left themselves a little bit too much to do, in my opinion. They got a win yesterday. I heard David Moyes' comments. West Ham were incredibly, let's say, animated about the potential Thiago handball. I don't see that as a handball. I don't see what all the fuss is about. I mean, look, it's a rule. If you're on the floor and you're breaking your fall, it's allowed. And it's just ironic that when Moyes was asked about the Susek handball, famously when they were playing Chelsea, he simply just commented, "I didn't see it," and that's why I find it very difficult to kind of listen to managers when they simply argue just the one side of the coin. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just saying, "Yeah, I thought it was a penalty," actually. But yeah, yesterday I didn't see that as a penalty at all. I think Liverpool came away with a narrow win. I mean, poor defending for the Matip header. West Ham, after a really big win against Bournemouth, that's a poor result for them at home. They would have fancied picking up a point. But no, in terms of top four, I think United today, I think Bruno Fernandes might be missing. I think
I've My sources tell me he should be all right.
yeah,
I hope so, because he's, by the way, incredible stat. Never missed a game through injury in his professional career.
Wow.
Outrageous availability.
Was it his partner that posted the picture of him in the boot, in the protective
Protective
boot?
boot,
Yeah,
yeah. And it
I
elevated.
Yeah, I did feel like it was a bit right. That seems a bit
No, don't get
like
me wrong. He still might not make the starting
no,
lineup, but
for sure, for sure. But normally, I think normally teams, I don't know what Eric Ten Hag's been saying about it, but normally teams want to keep that a little bit under wraps, so to speak. You know, not to kind of volunteer any information or any kind of pre-game info to the opposition. I think like a huge game for Spurs. Let's be clear. They are. I mean, United could quieten that crowd quickly if they score early, and it could get messy. United are at least more comfortable right now in terms of with their playing style. Spurs look shaken. They'll want a big reaction after the debacle at St James's Park last weekend. So yeah, no, look, I still think United and Newcastle will finish out the top four alongside Arsenal and Man City. And yeah, I just think United will be buoyed by that Sunday game at Wembley. They've booked themselves a final. I think they'll still fancy it against Man City. They've got the players to hurt Man City. Of course, Man City will head into that game favourites for sure. But I just think off the back of that, going into today's game, to your point, today's game's huge. If Spurs win, everything has to be reconsidered to some extent. Spurs have got some difficult games. They've got United today. They've got Liverpool next. I think they've got Palace, Villa, Brentford, Leeds to finish off. And those are still tricky games, especially you can imagine last game of the season if Leeds are scrapping to stay in the league. So, no, I think United have enough. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I do think they've got enough, and I think they'll finish third in the end.
I'm devastated. They've got rid of Stellini. Absolutely devastated. Ryan Mason's coming. Normally, I wouldn't be too scared, but how many teams is that this season now that we've played with new managers? My God.
That's
Just
because all the teams are firing their managers, so you're always going to be playing somebody with.
no, honestly, we've got new manager bounces. I don't know how many times this season. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I know Ryan Mason hasn't really got much managerial experience, but with the way they're playing right now, they don't bloody need it. They might not need much more than a little confidence boost from their new man. So I expect us to win. If Bruno Fernandes plays, then I 100% that not 100%, but I think we're heavy favourites to wrap that game up. He's too big a loss for us. He just is.
Just on Fernandez, I wanted to get your thoughts. Do you? It doesn't really matter how you answer it, but United's player of the season in your eyes? I mean, Rashford's had some big moments and been very consistent for the most part, but would you
I
give
would
Fernandez the nod?
I would
Maybe
yeah.
Martinez maybe in with a shout
Yeah,
as
so
well.
that
Yeah.
that's so they're the people in my thought. So I've got Rashford, Martinez. You, you could argue Varane, but less so. Casemiro, but he's been unavailable for quite a run of games. So yeah, I think Bruno Fernandes would actually get it for me. Pause. I think Bruno Fernandes would get that award for me. Yeah, just the fact that he's played in numerous positions, he's performed wherever he's played, like right wings, center attacking mids, as an eight, as a six, does not matter. Wherever he's been plugged, he's done a superb job for us. And his availability, his leadership, that was absolutely ridiculous, by the way. I know we got annihilated by Liverpool at Anfield. Let's call a spade a spade. And then the agendas that run against that
you,
guy.
you did on the last episode when you referenced this game, you couldn't even bring yourself to say the team's name, but at least we're making progress now.
Yeah. I think I just need to call a spade, and it is what it is. Let him have it. It's all good. Um, but yeah, the agenda they run against him. If he was English, they wouldn't say anything about him. But he's an easy target because don't get me wrong, at times he shouldn't throw his arms around and moan so much at his teammates. But I appreciate players like that because it means more to him. You know what I mean? And he's shown numerous times this season his leadership skills, the way he drives this team on. Even when he went off in the semi-final against Brighton, he went off injured, but before the penalties happened, the way he was rallying the troops and everything is superb stuff. And he's not just one of them that's there for morale. And no, I won't mention any names, but this he's not just there to make everyone feel good or like just passion merchant or anything like that. The guy's quality, easily our best signing post Fergie era. I don't even think it's remotely close. He's by far the best signing we've ever had. Quality he brings. So if we have him tonight, I think we're back to I think our backers to win comfortably. In the race for the top four, though, if Spurs do come on, I don't know, there could be a Jekyll and Hyde thing here, and they could just perform tonight. And if they do turn up, then it is blown wide open. It's blown wide open. I know we have games in hand, but you don't really want games in hand at this point in the season. You want your points on the board. Brighton have just fallen off.
Yeah,
And
that was a big defeat. That was a big defeat for them
you'd
yesterday.
say it was a hangover, but it really wasn't because they actually had unbelievable chances to win that game. And Seesaw, there was one from Mitoma pulled back to him. You can't miss that. You
Yeah, I mean
can't miss that.
it's a good save, but you're right.
No, but you can't miss that. You're center of the goal, about 8 yards out. How are you missing it? And then Mitoma himself had an unbelievable chance. It was played through on goal. He scuffed it onto his other foot and he's a too wide.
It still nearly ended up in, but you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
why.
But it's so I wouldn't even say it was a hangover and they played rubbish. It was just they didn't take their chances. Forest did. Fair play to them. Unfortunate for Ayub. But yeah, I think the Liverpool resurgence might be a tad too late. But you never know. Stranger things. The teams above them can slip up.
Yeah, and Villa have to go to Old Trafford, and I think given the way the games are, Villa would have to win that game.
But Villa have beaten us, and again, new manager bounce. We thought we got Unai Emery in his first game, and he fair play to them. They beat us on the day, so I think they'll come to Old Trafford knowing they've beaten us once this season, so they'll have that confidence. But we'll see. And Newcastle played some terrific stuff, man.
Yeah.
I don't think Everton are laying a glove on them tonight. Unfortunately for Everton, I think it'll be United Newcastle in the end.
Yeah.
Anything else would surprise me, given what the teams are going through right now. But hey, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, just on your point about Bruno Fernandes, I do agree with you. I think he probably has been your best player in terms of just consistent, available. I think he's a really intelligent footballer. His passing is superb. It's the positions he picks up. It's these third man runs that he makes very difficult for teams to track. He's a goal threat. He's an assist threat. He can control the game. I think he's definitely come on leaps and bounds. And I agree with you, by the way, about the Liverpool situation, the game at Anfield. I mean, the only thing I think with Fernandes is it's sometimes, and it's just more a personal thing with me where and it's not just him, so I don't want to make it just about him, but just in terms of the exaggerating of fouls and things like that, it's more that I find a little bit more disappointing. And listen, he's not the only player to do this. In terms of all the other stuff, in terms of the histrionics, I think, look, to your point, he's I want to say they say show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. He wants it. He's passionate. I think fans, or at least fans of the club that he plays for, like to see that, right? And I agree with you. I think in the end, that became the story when you think, well, listen, we've got thrashed 7-0. Does that really, in the grand scheme of things, is that the biggest issue that Man United have? Not really. So it becomes this kind of distraction. So for me, it's an irrelevant topic. But yeah, listen, he's had an unbelievable season. Perhaps one of the ones who's benefited from Ronaldo's exit the most. I think he's just been able to spread his wings a lot more. And I think, given his age, I think he's still got a few quality big seasons for Manchester United, and he'll be integral next season. I think if they can get Rashford in similar form by a quality number 9, and then you think Bruno Fernandes, there's no reason
he's racking up these goals and assists without a number 9, really.
Yeah, and I was
unreal.
And listen, he's not. I think you would agree. He's not in De Bruyne's league, but I would imagine. No, you better agree with me. I mean, that's not up for discussion. I mean,
so who
honestly,
is in De Bruyne's league?
There isn't anyone. But the point is, I mean, honestly, when he lined that ball up, it's like it happened in slow motion yesterday. Where I was thinking, when he put the ball past Gabriel, I was thinking, so it's about 21 yards out, relatively center of goal. There's probably not a right foot in world football that I trust more than Kevin De Bruyne in this situation. And it's just so inevitable that he finds the back of the net with a lovely side foot finish. But no, I think what I was going to say is I think there's no reason why he can't, to your point, rack up some serious goals and assists next season if they have a quality number 9. I mean, you could just imagine if they had like a Harry Kane up front. So that'll be interesting to see from a United perspective next year. But I agree with you. I think Newcastle United are probably far enough ahead. And I think if United win today, they've given themselves definitely some breathing space.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Who are you saying top two? Newcastle United?
Uh,
United and Newcastle, I should say.
third and fourth. Listen, like I
Not
said, I
third
feel
and fourth, but who will round out that top four, basically?
yeah, Newcastle United, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I know you want to put Arsenal third, but that's fine.
No, but United will finish above Newcastle. Just
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, we're United are playing at a horrendous time today, 8:15. So I guess we'll see later tonight how things pan out. And I think that is it for us today. It was an interesting episode. It was Arsenal just disappointing me constantly throughout. I mean, I want to mock them. I want to mock them, and I can't.
I feel like you're more disappointed than I am.
I know it really does feel like that. It really does feel like that. Yeah, I try to get into your psyche sometimes. I'm like, how must it feel like? Yesterday, you weren't really biting anything I was saying on our WhatsApp group. So I was like, okay, he might actually be angry for once.
I may or may not have muted the notifications.
Ah, I see. But yeah, thank you, Uwais, for joining me tonight.
A pleasure.
Like I say, hopefully we'll have you back on the next one. And the next one should actually be coming out sometime early next week. So yeah, that's this episode of Just Onside. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit the bell for notification for your next episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.